Good evening, this is Occupier Kayla coming to you live from Monument area just south and east of the Iowa State Capitol, the Japanese Bell. This is a commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the U.S. military bombing of Hiroshima, Japan, followed 3 days later by
good
the
evening,
bombing
everyone.
of Nagasaki.
We're going to get started here shortly. I see a few people are still on their way in. So have a seat, or if you're standing, feel free to gather in here a little closer if you'd like. I'm Erica McCroskey, and I'm the Director of Catholic Peace Ministry. I'd like to welcome you here this evening. I see a lot of familiar faces. Many more of you I don't know very well. Feel free to come up after the observance and introduce yourselves. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here for this important observance this evening, reflecting on 70 years after the great destruction of life and a natural world life as well, looking at the present and also into the future. The fate of our earth, that is our theme this evening. I hope you each received a program. If you didn't, I know they're around here somewhere. Sarah has these. And I'd like to give a few words here before we begin. You'll see the song lyrics printed on the back of your programs. So if you take a moment there to know where we are. There's also a few petitions circling and informational type pages, so take a look at those. And if you feel like adding your name, please do. One of them is an appeal for a total ban on nuclear weapons. And we'll be sending those names directly to an organization in Japan. So you can take a look at that as well as it comes around to you. Also, we ask, in keeping with the somber tone of today's observance, to please refrain from clapping between speakers or songs. And also, once again, welcoming you to this year's Hiroshima-Nagasaki observance. You can see a list of sponsoring organizations in your program. If you want to take a moment to look, a lot of very wonderful and dedicated individuals and organizations are helping to sponsor this observance this evening, as well as tonight's song leaders and other individuals involved in the program. So we thank everyone. With us this evening is Daishin Eric McCabe, who brings 15 years of monastic life, including practicing at Buddhist temples in Japan, France, California, and the Midwest. He has created Zen Fields, an organization to bring about dialogue and action on climate change. He will tell us about the significance of the bell and will also lead us in solemnly ringing it at the close of our observance this evening.
I'm really honored to be here with you all this evening and to share a few words. I want to first thank the powers that be that allowed us all to come together today to remember what happened 70 years ago. If we don't come together, then this will be forgotten. And the fact that we've all come together means that we have a desire to not forget this event of the past. I think the one main lesson that we can take with us from the dropping of the atomic bomb, from the Japanese, from this beautiful bell behind me, is that all of us are interrelated, interconnected. We can see that truth just by simply dropping a pebble into a pool of water. There is a ripple effect out from that pebble. In the same way, when a bomb is dropped, there is a ripple effect from that. And the ripple effect from the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs are still present with us today, mainly in the form of fear. And we can feel that fear even today. I turned on the radio yesterday and I was hearing news about the problems of other countries generating nuclear arms, and that's a concern for all of us. And I think if we look deeply, we can see that the stem of that fear of today goes back to the dropping of the bombs 70 years ago. So the ripple effect is still with us right now. Everything that we do has consequences. The ringing of a bell, too, creates consequences. There is a Zen master, a Japanese Zen master named Dogen. He lived in the 13th century, and he wrote prolifically. He's a beautiful poet, and his writings have influenced people 800 years after his death. So even one person has a ripple effect on our world, on each of us. And Zen Master Dogen, one of his writings, he talks about what in Buddhism is called emptiness. One way to think of emptiness is a sense that everything is interrelated. But another sense is not just that we are aware of interrelatedness, but that we live in a way that actualizes that interrelatedness. And he writes, in comparing the sound of a bell to emptiness, the sound that issues from the striking of emptiness is an endless and wondrous voice that resounds before and after the fall of the hammer. The hammer he's referring to is that striker that we see behind me next to the bell, used to ring it. I wonder if we can hear the sound of the bell before we even strike it. In a sense, that bell has been ringing since the moment it came to this country. If you really listen deeply, you can hear the sound that has issued from it from thousands of people over the decades who have rung it. And in Japan, the bell reminds us, when we hear the sound, it reminds us of three things. The first thing is that everything is interrelated. The second thing is that it's the voice of the Buddha. And the voice of the Buddha is saying that we need to live and remember to live in an ethical way, to do no harm, to speak truthfully, to be generous with our time and our material resources, to protect children from sexual misconduct, to be faithful in our relationships, and to refrain from clouding the mind with intoxicants. And the last thing that the bell reminds us is a saying that any Zen priest, a monk or nun, will recite to themselves before ringing it. They recite, "May the sounding of this bell dispel the trials and tribulations that plague all sentient beings." Thank you.
At this time, we've asked Mayor Cownie to join us this evening. And as most of you know, he has been a leader on the topic of a nuclear-free world, especially with his involvement in Mayors for Peace, as well as his commitment to environmental sustainability. So, Mayor County.
You know, when I think about this every year, year in and year out, that we've been doing this for, it seems like past 15 years that I've been coming to these types of events, and I always try to think of what are the positive things that are taking place, what's happened in Des Moines, what about this day, are there any important things? And I'll just relate to you. I mean, today we reopened American Republic Insurance, which is now American Enterprise, and they redid the building. It's a building that started in 1965. They redid it, kind of dedicated it today here in 2015, and it's a positive thing, and citizens and businesses thinking about the right thing to do. You think about 50 years ago today also, not only was American Republic breaking the ground on their new headquarters, but we had the Voting Rights Act. Lyndon Johnson signed it, and it prohibits racial discrimination in voting. Positive things. But then you think about 70 years ago, and all the work that all of you have been doing since then, but at 8:15 in the morning, here was a town in Japan that had really wasn't a war town. It had a lot of people working and living, and children, and streams and rivers, and they never imagined what might happen. But at 8:15, the first atomic bomb for war purposes was exploded over Hiroshima. And by the end of the year, 140,000 people had lost their lives. And you think about that, you think about that devastation, you think about the future of this planet, you think about some of the stuff that all of you, I know as I see so many familiar faces, have been working on for such a long period of time, and you think, what kind of progress are we making? How are we doing? And then you reflect that, and you look at not only what we're doing as individuals in our communities and in our places where we live, and think about the future of our city and our state and our country. And you think about, what are our priorities? And sometimes our priorities are reflected by how we spend our dollars. And for those of you who haven't been watching the budget in Washington, D.C., I'll just tell you that CDBG funding this year, those community development block grants, Congress has committed to $3.2 billion to help people that really need help all across this country get some funding, get some help, get a boost up. We have about $52 billion in transportation. And you think, well, that's something that needs to happen. We've got to fix our roads, we've got to fix our bridges, we've got to fix our rail, we've got to do some stuff. And then we turn around and spend $600 billion